Good morning, Sac City. Welcome into another edition of the Sac City Podcast. I am your host, the one and only Vinny Milani, joined as always by my best friend who's battling the sun right now. It's him against the sun. It's an absolute war. He is
annoying as fuck, is what it is.
There it is. You can either have a sun behind you or a zoo behind you. Either way, you're going to get some awesome behind-the-scenes content from the Sac City Podcast today. I'm your host, the one and only Vinny Milani, joined as always by my best friend in the whole entire world. He is Aaron, the Mukesiah Mukes. And below us, we have ya boy, my boy, and everybody's boy. He is AJ Johnson. It is a beautiful December 1st morning here in the city. We're kicking off a new month with a new show, episode 126 coming your way. We've got fantasy football rankings heading into week 13. We also dive into some matchups that we like and we don't like within the running back and quarterback positions. We've got some Thursday night football tonight between the Buffalo Bills and the New England Patriots. So we'll dive into the DFS plays to help you guys win some money. We'll talk about the most expensive players, who we value, who we don't value, and all things in between. We'll get your lineup set to win some DFS money. Gentlemen, let's talk rankings. Let's not beat around the bush. Let's go into the running back rankings. That's right. It's time to dive into your running back rankings here, 1 through 12, your RB1s on the week. Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, and Travis Etienne round out your top 6, Aaron. I want to start right there because there's one player in particular. I know the matchup is juicy. Like it's great when you see any player matched up against the Detroit Lions defense. You're like, okay, this is a great matchup. But Travis Etienne this week, coming off of an ankle injury or a foot injury in week 12. Little concerns heading into week 13. The Jaguars coaching staff has said he should be fine to go. Etienne himself said he should be straight. But the concern for re-injury has to be there, and maybe him not being 100%. What's your concern level heading into week 13 for Travis Etienne? You're on mute.
Well, I checked in with my Jaguars insider, Vinny Milani, and he indicated that the coaching staff doesn't have real concerns about it, said that it was minor, that he should be good to go. And if he's good to go, then I'm loving that juicy matchup. We saw what he's been able to do over the past month or so. Even before leaving in that Baltimore game, he had just a couple of carries, so he didn't really get an opportunity there. Prior to the bye week, he had 11 for 45, 3 catches on 28 yards through the air, only scoring 10 points. But prior to that, it's been double digits heavily for the past 6 weeks. It's been 14, it's been 18, it's been 2 20-point games during that time. We saw the volume uptick when they got rid of James Robinson, or towards the end of James Robinson's tenure there, and then the touchdowns started coming. He was getting involved in the passing game, and you saw the explosion that people were excited about at the beginning of the season. So when you get a juicy matchup like this at Detroit, who's not very good against the running back position, if he's healthy, I think you're okay making that start. I don't look at this situation and say, okay, am I questioning whether he's going to be able to be good or not? I know that if he plays and they're giving him opportunities, that he's going to produce. So that's really where I'm at. I try not to take injury into consideration if there's not a real question about the guy. And based on everything that I've read and that I've seen, that he should be good to go, I'm not going to show that concern unless I hear otherwise or unless I see something different prior to Sunday. He's going to be up there in my rankings. Their Detroit Lions are averaging 20.6 fantasy points a game to the running back position. It's bottom half of the league. I like the matchup here, and I like what the Jaguars have tried to do with Etienne since the departure of James Robinson.
Yeah, when you see the Lions on your schedule and for your fantasy players, you're like, okay, start them up, load them up, fire them up. Pretty much every Jaguar on the offensive side of the ball is the start for this week, including Zay Jones. Could be a spot start. Christian Kirk, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, throw in Marvin Jones if you want to. Who knows? Maybe you'll get a touchdown from him against this. It's a revenge game. Who knows? It could happen. He could be in your DFS lineup. But on the other side of things, it's Christian McCaffrey, David Montgomery, Ramondre Stevenson tonight, Saquon Barkley, Kenneth Walker, and Dameon Pierce rounding out your top 12. AJ, what did you want to talk about with Dameon Pierce?
Oh, no. We're good. We're good. I just know Dameon Pierce had himself a hard go at it last week. I think he'll be better this week, but I know that there's an insider on our panel that has some good stuff to say about Dameon Pierce, and I'm going to let him say he's probably done way more research and way more conversation about Dameon Pierce. So it's cool. I have another route I can go, and it's a guy we've talked about for a couple of weeks. It's a guy most people probably are okay with and enjoy having in their lineup, and it's going to be David Montgomery against the Packers. I think that's another good spot, another good player who you can expect this week to kind of, I don't want to say go off, but do you solid. High in RB2, low in RB1 for sure. Last week, 68% of the snaps, 14 carries without Justin Fields, and everyone thinks if Justin Fields comes back, well, now David Montgomery's going to get no work. That's not true. It just gives them another person that they have to think about. It gives them a read option that they have to think about and might actually allow David Montgomery to break out again. He's actually got into the passing game as well. And with Khalil Herbert on IR, David Montgomery's a guy that you need to take advantage of the extra work that he's getting at this point in time, because once again, he's that guy in that backfield. And we talked about going down the stretch, how much David Montgomery's usage normally ticks up during this time of year. So I like your spot with David Montgomery sitting there at 8 in your rankings. I think he has a very solid chance to hit that spot.
Last time Montgomery played the Green Bay Packers, 15 for 122, added 2 catches, 14 yards. Didn't even get in the end zone, and that was with Khalil Herbert there. Played 80% of the snaps and scored 15 fantasy points. I really like that as well. Montgomery is primed for another stretch run as we head towards the back half of the season. So if you're one of those people that don't believe in that playoff guy, he's done it for 2 years straight. It looks like it could be a third year straight. So go get David Montgomery if you can. If you already have him, good luck, because he's probably going to score a lot of points for you. So you're probably going to reap those benefits. I agree. David Montgomery, top 10 play for me this week, perhaps top 10 play for the next coming weeks. And I don't even think that matters whether Justin Fields is back or not. And by the way, I do think Fields is back on Sunday.
Yeah, there's a lot of chatter about Justin Fields and whether or not he's going to play. We'll talk about him when we get to our injury report. But Aaron, I know we normally don't really talk about the number one on your rankings or even really like the hot type of matchups for certain players. But similar to what I was talking about with Travis Etienne, when you see the Houston Texans on your schedule, you think, okay, start up, load up every one of your players, including your number one running back this week, Nick Chubb, who's got the Texans. All the talk around that game surrounds Deshaun Watson against the Texans, and that's where everyone is around. But the running back position against the Houston Texans is really where you're going to get the most fantasy value, I think, on Sunday, because of game script and because of what the game is going to end up turning out to be. You talk about the Texans passing defense, stopping quarterbacks, limiting quarterbacks. Obviously, it doesn't show when it comes to like who wins and loses the game, because everyone has a good day in real life against the Texans. But when it comes to fantasy, it seems like the running back position is where you see the most success. Aaron, Nick Chubb against the Texans. Do you think what do you have to say to the fantasy managers that are concerned about it being a Deshaun Watson day over a Nick Chubb type of day? Can it be both?
It can be, but there has to be some concern there. I think this is probably the game where there is concern. And I know I have them ranked high because you look at the matchup. The matchup is juicy. It's probably the best matchup of the week of any player going against any team. The Texans allowing 27 fantasy points to the running back position. And Nick Chubb, well, what does he do? When he gets volume, he runs well. If you look at his course of his season, the days where he's lacked the touches, the 12 carry day, the 11 carry day, and the 14 carry day, those are his lowest outputs of the season. And it's because they're not giving him the volume. When he's gone over 15 touches, he's produced. He's been RB1 a number of weeks. He's been RB top 5 running back over the course of the season. So when he consistently gets the volume, he consistently puts up the fantasy value. Yes, Deshaun Watson is back. I expect Deshaun Watson to want to throw the ball. I expect that the Cleveland Browns want to get Deshaun Watson an opportunity to show what he's capable of. And then we talked about it the other day. I don't want to say it's a revenge tour for Deshaun Watson, but the quickest way to put some of the off the field issues to rest is by producing on the field. And despite how we may feel about it personally, from a societal standpoint, whether he did right, whether he did wrong, whether he's guilty, not guilty, it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is if you go out as an athlete and you perform, those talks become less and less and less over time. And the next thing you know, Deshaun Watson goes and wins the Super Bowl. Guess what we're talking about again? We're talking about what happened, but how he overcame adversity and and it's in a more positive light. So I think that's got to be in his mind. So I do think he's going to take this opportunity to try and start that conversation shifting from what he did to what he's going to do now. And that could start Sunday, especially playing the Texans, which is his old team. So there's some slight concern about, do they throw the ball more, especially at the beginning, and then it does get out of hand, or it doesn't get out of hand and the game script has to change. But Nick Chubb is great. Nick Chubb is great. So if he gets the opportunities, he will score.
Now, where does that leave Kareem Hunt? Now, I know, and a spoiler alert, he's not in your top 24 running backs, and Kareem Hunt has been bad for fantasy as of late, or throughout this season, I should say. But now you get Deshaun Watson, who you just said, you think they're going to air it out more. And I also think with this coaching staff, you're going to see them also recognize the fact that for Deshaun Watson to be successful moving forward, you're going to have to let him ball out and put everything behind him, like you said. And with that, it's more passing, and the passing running back is Kareem Hunt. Do you see Nick Chubb getting more involved in the passing game and Kareem Hunt falling back even further? Or do we start to see a resurgence from Kareem Hunt to finish out the year?
I don't think so. I'm still fading Kareem Hunt. One thing that Deshaun Watson and Jacoby Brissett have in common is the fact that they want to push the ball down the field. That's been kind of the detriment of Kareem Hunt, is he's not getting those check down opportunities that he was getting with Baker Mayfield or even some of the quarterback prior when Baker has been out. Deshaun Watson wants to go down the field. We saw the connection he had in Houston with Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins and those guys. And now you get Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones who can go down the field. I think this is more about the quarterback play and what they're capable of, and that's why it's hurting Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt's not going to run the ball very much because they know the better running back is Nick Chubb. He's only seeing 5 carries a game over the last 3 weeks, and he hasn't scored in double digits in 4 weeks. That includes the bye week. I think that you're going to see the same thing down the stretch. Deshaun Watson is going to look to push the ball down the field, and when there's running opportunities and red zone opportunities, the better player, the better red zone threat is Nick Chubb. I am not comfortable starting Kareem Hunt in any form or fashion, not even as a flex play. I think his floor is too low, as we've seen 3 weeks ago when it was 2.9, and I don't think his ceiling's high enough, as his ceiling this year, outside of week 1, has only been 14 points, and that was when he got 11 carries, which I don't think he gets because he hasn't seen that since week 8 and only seen that a few times since week 6. So for me, Kareem Hunt is a fade all the way out. Our RB34 on the season, I'm staying away.
So no matter what the offense looks like, whether they throw the ball more or not, Kareem Hunt being faded by our guy here. AJ, are you on board with that? You fading Kareem Hunt as well? I just want to get your thoughts on that before we
Yeah, I've been fading Kareem Hunt for a while. I kind of wish I would have been smart enough to trade him when I could have, but he's on my bench in a lot of places, and it's going to suck if he does have himself a good day, but you can't trust it. It's not worth it at this point in time in the season to put him in your lineup with what he's shown you all season.
Okay. All right. Let's take a look at your RB2s for the week. You got Joe Mixon at 13. He's coming back from a concussion. Hopefully plays on Sunday. Dalvin Cook against the Jets. Alvin Kamara, tough matchup against the Buccaneers. Jamal Williams at 16. 17, Ezekiel Elliott. 18, Isaiah Pacheco. 19, Rashad White. Miles Sanders at 20. Tony Pollard, Antonio Gibson, A.J. Dillon, and Kyron Williams round out your RB2s. AJ, let's start off with Jamal Williams here at 16. When you look at the running back group for the Detroit Lions, it was all about DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift is supposed to be the guy in this backfield. A lot of hype around him entering the season, a highly invested running back where he highly drafted. But it seems to be Jamal Williams' backfield moving forward because DeAndre Swift is playing, right? Am I losing my mind here? DeAndre Swift is in. And we're at the point now where we're putting Jamal Williams as a top 24 running back, and DeAndre Swift's name isn't even around here. What's going on with the Detroit Lions backfield, and what's your confidence in Jamal Williams, and what should fantasy owners really be doing with DeAndre Swift moving forward?
It's very interesting because you look at Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift, you could probably call them both the touchdown dependent running backs, but you can probably depend on touchdowns from both of these guys. I mean, Jamal Williams has 12, 13 touchdowns on the season. He fell in the end zone 3 of the last 4 weeks, 4 of the last 5 weeks, and 2 of those were multiple times. It's more than likely if they get near the goal line, he's going to get a shot at the end zone, and he normally does. With DeAndre Swift, they haven't been giving him a lot of the opportunities. It's been about 30, 31%. But he's been finding his way into the end zone and finding a way to score and find double digits. So with this running back, I think kind of what happens, and this is a theory, it hasn't been proven, it hasn't been said. I kind of feel like with DeAndre Swift getting injured week or year in and year out, and where the Lions are sitting, seeing that they have a bright future, but a present that is just kind of working towards being better, and then getting Jamal Williams to show out like they did, I feel like they're letting Jamal Williams, the older back, kind of carry the backfield and carry the load and allow DeAndre Swift to continue to get healthy while still getting some football under his belt. Still allowing him to play like 30, 31% of the snaps, be NFL ready. So next season when, they believe it's all bets are off and they have to go for the gold, we're hoping and they're hoping that he's 100% healthy and he can kind of pick up where he left off coming into the season. Again, that's a theory. It hasn't been proven. It hasn't been said by anybody. It just kind of seems what's making sense. You don't take a hot hand in Jamal Williams and just put him right back to the bench because DeAndre Swift was ready to go, so to speak, and hasn't been able to show it. So I like what they're doing. I mean, for NFL, you split these guys. For fantasy, it sucks for us because a lot of people don't have both guys. You have to make a decision. But more than likely, you're going to see these guys fall into the end zone. And I think this week against Jacksonville, they both do have a good shot at doing so.
Yeah, I don't know if I feel the same as AJ about liking what they're doing because I think there's the biggest narrative out there is that Jamal Williams is playing well and he's not. Like the efficiency of Jamal Williams is not very good. He's averaging in 6 of his 11 games, he's averaged less than 4 yards a carry. He literally has been the definition of touchdown dependent. Now, great, he scored 13 touchdowns, RB12 on the year. That's all fine and dandy. I'm not saying you can't start him. Obviously, I have him in my rankings for a reason because I know that's what they're going to do with him. They, for whatever reason, whether it's injury, whether it's not injury, they don't want DeAndre Swift to carry the load. And I think that's a tell sign that they don't believe he can do that, at least as of right now. Maybe next year, maybe it's a future plan. Who knows? But for me personally, I'm a fantasy owner. I don't care. I want to see the better back in the backfield, and that's DeAndre Swift. This is the first week. Week 13 is the first week DeAndre Swift is not on the injury report. So if we see the same thing happen, then it's not about injury. It's not about, oh, he's still battling back from that ankle injury. He's no longer on the injury report. He's close to his 100% as he possibly can be. So if that uptick for DeAndre Swift is not there this week, then it's just a matter of them liking to do what they want to do. And we can liken it back to when Aaron Jones wasn't getting his run or when Javonte Williams was splitting carries with Melvin Gordon. Those are the same situations we were getting so frustrated at as fantasy owners, and it's going to continue. Yes, Jamal Williams scores touchdowns. Yes, it's still hard to trust him. Like I said, he's a top 12 back on the year, but most of his games look like this: 17 for 64, but he scores 3 times. But then he has games where it's 24 for 81. Like, I'm sorry, that's not exciting to me. So I don't want a player like that because those touchdown regressions usually come unless he has a year, which this could be the case. He might be having the year where he goes for 20 touchdowns. And that's very possible based on the way they use him. However, I told you guys down the stretch in the playoffs, those are the guys that will get you 4 points in the playoffs. 15 carries, 45 yards, and you'll be so pissed off because he has zero volume in the passing game in the past 5 weeks. Literally zero volume. He's had 5 games this year where he has no targets. He's had every one of his games, all 11 of his games that he's played, he's had less than 3 or less targets, has had 1 catch in 4 games, a 2-catch game, a 3-catch game, and the rest have no catches. I don't trust players like this in the playoffs. I would be concerned going forward, but this week I do like him. I think it's a pretty good matchup against Jacksonville. I do think he finds the end zone because I do think Detroit's going to be able to score. So you can play him this week, but are you trusting him week 15 against the Jets? No. Am I trusting him week 16 against Carolina? Probably not, even though Carolina's rush defense is not very good. Sometimes they've been able to lock up and play well. We saw it against Atlanta, and I just don't trust it. I don't trust it down the stretch, but I do trust it this week, if that makes sense.
AJ, you going let's play the game here. Let's Jamal Williams or AJ Dillon.
I'm going Jamal Williams this week.
Okay. Jamal Williams or Antonio Gibson against the Giants. Jamal Williams against the Jaguars. Antonio Gibson against the Giants.
I mean, that's a tough one in my opinion, but I think because of the targets in the pass game, I might lean Antonio Gibson in that case.
Okay. All right. Aaron, did you have anything to say? Your rankings are it makes it hard for me to ask you these questions because of the way your rankings sit. Because you have Gibson at 22 and Jamal Williams at 16.
Yeah, but remember what I told you about my rankings. A lot of times I have to take into consideration what I've seen, right? What I've seen from these players. Jamal Williams has scored every week. If I had that lineup decision, could I alter it? Absolutely. I could find myself picking both A.J. Dillon and Antonio Gibson over Jamal Williams, depending on what you need. I think Jamal Williams is the safer play, which is why he's ranked higher. But if I'm looking for a ceiling, I'm probably taking Antonio Gibson or A.J. Dillon. I actually like A.J. Dillon this week a little bit. But, there's always that thing in the back of your mind. Maybe he goes back to what he was 2 weeks ago. So I think in this particular instance, yeah, you rank Jamal Williams higher, but it would not shock me if anybody's taking Antonio Gibson or A.J. Dillon over him. I'm not arguing that. Because I know Jamal Williams is touchdown dependent. Those other guys are not. Well, A.J. Dillon's pretty touchdown dependent, but with Aaron Rodgers being hurt, that could change things. They could run a lot more. The checkdowns are going to happen. He might get involved there. And we know what Antonio Gibson's capable of doing out of the backfield in the passing game. So, and I always lean those guys a little bit more than I do the touchdown dependent, just running back guys.
Yeah. Let me ask you about one other player before we move on to our quarterbacks here. Isaiah Pacheco at 18. Now, something we've talked about on this show before or in the past, and I've been bringing it up as a point, has been DJ Reader and his impact on the Cincinnati Bengals defensive line and how it stops the run, how it is very effective, how he's holding that line together. And sometimes that may not show in terms of fantasy, but last week, Derrick Henry, the great Derrick Henry, yes, he had 14.7 points in PPR leagues and full-point PPR leagues. But when you look at his numbers, at least on the ground, 17 carries, 38 yards, only averaged 2.2 yards per attempt. It wasn't that great of a day. It really came from that one big passing play for Derrick Henry last week against the Bengals. But for the most part, they kind of limited one of the best running backs in the NFL. Isaiah Pacheco gets that matchup this week as the Chiefs meet the Bengals in a big-time showdown. You've got Pacheco as RB2 here, Aaron. What are your thoughts going into this game for the rookie running back?
Yeah, well, the Tennessee Titans aren't the Kansas City Chiefs, let's be honest. If you're playing against the Tennessee Titans, you're scheming against Derrick Henry. If you're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, you're not scheming against Isaiah Pacheco. Yeah, like DJ Reader's nice, but he's not doing it alone. Like that defense was focusing in on Derrick Henry. This is a situation where you have to focus on Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes and all the weapons on that offensive side of the football. Pacheco, right now, Jerick McKinnon's banged up. I think Pacheco's you've seen the opportunities and volume go up and up and up for him. We saw 15 carries last week. We saw 22 carries this past week. He got in the end zone finally. I think that's a big deal. This is about playing in an offense that is just fantasy friendly. And when you're the guy that's going to get the bulk of the carries, you're likely to get some red zone opportunities because they're often in the red zone. And if he gets in the end zone, he'll have enough work to make it a fantasy relevant day. Again, RB2. Remember, Cincinnati is still averaging, giving up almost 20 points a game to the running back position. Ronald Jones, I'm sorry, I don't trust him in that backfield. If Jerick McKinnon ends up being out in this one, I think they're going to lean even more heavily on Isaiah Pacheco, maybe even in a little bit in the passing game. I like what I've seen from him. I like the way he runs, but more importantly, I like being in the Kansas City offense that is fantasy friendly, regardless of how good the Cincinnati Bengals defense has been. Kansas City is going to score, and they are going to put up yards and they're going to put up points because that's what Kansas City does.
Yeah, I think that Isaiah Pacheco is we talk about the running back position all the time with the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's like it was Clyde at one point, and then they throw in Jerick McKinnon. I think Isaiah Pacheco is the most talented back out of this group, and I think that it's going to show in these games. I'm not sure. I have a concern though. I know where the Cincinnati Bengals defense ranks in terms of points allowed to the running back position, 13th on the year. But just something in my mind tells me that this might not be a good day for Isaiah Pacheco. in my mind. I just have that feeling. I considered him as one of my players I didn't like for fantasy matchups. But when you look at it statistically, it's hard to back those numbers up because of where the Bengals sit in terms of the running back position. But really, all I could say is what they did to Derrick Henry last week, aside from that big-time passing play. And that's in the back of my mind. I'm thinking, okay, if Derrick Henry can get that big-time passing play in one and break one open, what do you think Isaiah Pacheco can do with Patrick Mahomes throwing him the ball, if that's going to be the case for this offense, which I trust a little bit more, which is why I didn't put him in my my positions or my players to avoid. But I digress. Let's talk quarterbacks here, Aaron. Let's go into your quarterback rankings. Your top 12 quarterbacks on the week. Patrick Mahomes against the Bengals. We were just talking about him. He is Patrick Mahomes. There is no change up at the top. Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, and Trevor Lawrence cracking your top 6 quarterbacks here. We talk about this all the time, how the quarterback position might be becoming like a tight end position, or really the wide receiver position is also doing that. But like Patrick Mahomes, your Justin Herbert, your Josh Allen, it's pretty much there. But there's one quarterback not listed on here, and I know I'm going to talk about him in a little bit. And I know I prevented AJ from talking about one of my running backs that I'm talking about later, but it deserves to be discussed here. Lamar Jackson is not in your top 12 quarterbacks here, Aaron. This jumps out to everybody. This has to jump out to everybody because he's Lamar freaking Jackson, and
Lamar Jackson.
He's not in your top 12. What's the deal?
I mean, could he have been? Sure. When I made this, obviously, Lamar Jackson's great. I'm not trying to knock it, but he's been kind of pedestrian outside. I know he has the running volume, and this is what we talked about. I believe 5 times this year he's been outside the top 12 in quarterback rankings. A lot of those times it's against defenses that have significant pass defense that can defend against the pass. I really like Denver's ability to defend against the pass here. And since we talked about wanting to categorize or get my percentages about being right and wrong about where quarterbacks and running backs fall on my rankings, I started taking it a little bit more serious. So I started doing a little bit more in-depth research, and I really just don't like this matchup. And I know Derek Carr just had a good day against Denver, but they also didn't have no Devontae Adams in Baltimore. I think this is a situation where Denver is going to make it extremely tough on Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's great. It's hard not to have him in my top 12. It's not something I want necessarily to do. But for Lamar Jackson, if you just look at the numbers, in the past, he hasn't thrown a multiple touchdown game since week 8. He's had one 2-touchdown game since week 3. And he's only had 1 rushing touchdown since then. So the numbers are down. The winning has been there. They've still been able to go out and win games. And I told you that this offense and this team is not like other teams. I don't judge them based on their volume and numbers. But in fantasy, that's what it's about. It is about the numbers. And although he's carrying the ball a lot, he's not finding the end zone. And he's not throwing for a ton of yardage. He's had 4 games where hasn't gone over 100 or 200 yards. He just doesn't have the numbers to support being in that level if he doesn't get it on the ground. And I think this is one of those games where I think Denver's defense plays him well, and he doesn't get those rushing yards or those rushing opportunities that he's had in the past. So in the past 5 weeks, he's been quarterback 8, 15, 10, 9, and 22. So the best has been quarterback 8. He's been outside of quarterback 10, 5 times. That's not good. So I'm going to take the way he's been producing against an elite defense now in Denver, and I'm gonna rock with it. I think he's probably more of a borderline back end quarterback 1, high end quarterback 2, but I like some of the other matchups better. So that's where I went.
I like these new rankings here because it's not just going chalk. You're looking at what's happening, what's going on, and just because the players
stupid. It's stupid. Hey. I'll tell you that. It's stupid because you're not telling anybody. You can say like, oh, it should be. You're not telling anybody to start Geno Smith over Lamar Jackson this week. You're not telling anybody to start Aaron Rodgers over Lamar Jackson.
You're setting the expectations now. You're setting what the expectations are for these players, and that's what people need to know, because like you said before, when you're looking at rankings, when you're looking at matchups, you're trying to figure out where you need the breakout, where you need the explosive games, the big time games. I'm not saying you're benching Lamar Jackson here, but if you're in a matchup and you're seeing, okay, I'm going up against another team that has a lot of high ceiling type of players, you're going to need to format and shape up the rest of your lineup to get those high impact players. And Lamar Jackson may not be it. So you might need
but I want to make it clear. I want to make it very clear, because this is why I get irritated with this process, because I'm not giving the advice for people to start quarterbacks 9 through 12 over Lamar Jackson, because that is asinine.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
That's what we are saying. When I put out these rankings, people go, I'm going to go based on these rankings. I want to make the caveat that if you were asking me, do I start Tom Brady against the Saints or do I start Lamar Jackson against Denver? I'm going to tell you right now, I would take Lamar Jackson against Denver. And this is what the problem I have. But at the end of the week, if I had Lamar Jackson ahead of Tom Brady, Vinny would come back on to you. You were 32% wrong, or 32% right, because Lamar Jackson finished quarterback 13. If that's the case, and I'm like, I know he can finish there, but I've always told everybody, you don't bench your studs for guys that haven't been studs. Like Lamar is a stud. He's had bad weeks, but we know what his ceiling is. I always will take ceilings over these floor guys that have no ceiling. And I think that's what we're doing here by ranking them this way, which is okay. But I want to make it very, very clear. When you look at rankings, they're not telling you who to start sit. Start sits are different than rankings. Rankings are a parameter which judge basically a floor. It's a floor versus a ceiling. And there's going to be a lot of players that have a higher ceiling because of whatever matchup, or have a higher floor because of a matchup, but that doesn't necessarily mean you need to start them. So yes, I know it's being contradicting what my rankings say, but if you want start sits questions, join us on Pigskin and Pancakes, and I'll specifically tell you who Lamar Jackson should be started over and who he should be sat for. Because if you just look at the rankings, you're going to make a wrong decision. The rankings are there as a parameter to indicate what these players are capable of doing. Usually puts their ceiling up there, and then it mixes in where their floor is at. And in this case, I think Lamar's floor this week is a little bit lower than it is on most normal weeks. And that's why he's ranked outside of the top
12. All right. Well, you have him outside the top 12. You got Geno Smith, Tom Brady also in your top 12. Aaron Rodgers in there as well, battling his injury, but still think he's going to be a top 12 quarterback. AJ, which name from Aaron's QB1s jumps out to you the most?
Probably number 9 with Tua. I mean, I understand why he's in the top 12. His offense alone and his record this year has just kind of solidified him as one of those top-tier quarterbacks. Last week, you think in the matchup where they just beat down the Houston Texans, he would have such a greater day, but he got pulled by the second half basically because they were just up by so much and only put up 15.9. Now, obviously, I don't want to hold that against him. But now you're going up against a matchup against San Francisco, who's played quite well over the course of the season. We know what their defense brings. When you have a Tyreek Hill, when you have a Jalen Waddle, you have a potent running game, you have an offense like that, it's kind of hard to really think about Tua and think of him without anything but sitting him or starting him. You're going to start Tua. But I do think this is another week where you might temper expectations for Tua and see him having a lower ceiling than normal. So that honestly, that's the only name that stuck out to me. I do want to think about with Geno Smith. I mean, you mentioned you don't sit your studs. I mean, this season has Geno Smith not really been a stud. I mean, he's at this point now got 20-point games in 3 of the last 4, right around 20 points over and over again. And then you get Lamar Jackson, who's put up 16 and 17, put up 10 in week 7. I mean, I feel like you have a solid enough argument to start a guy like Geno Smith over a Lamar Jackson if he's got a tough matchup.
I mean, you could have that. You could have that mindset. I'm not taking a sample size of 11 games and putting it over 4 years or 5 years of the course of the season. Nope, not me. You can be the person that goes into your fantasy playoffs and starts Geno Smith over a Lamar Jackson, and you could take that. I'm not saying every week Geno gets 10 points. That's what we're talking about. So if I said this the other day, if you are willing to sit your elite players that you know have done it year after year after year. If you're willing to see that, and they've done it this year as well at times, if you're willing to sit them for a guy that's put together some good games this year, by all means, good luck. More times than not, you are going to be wrong. I tend to go with resume and what you've done in the past and your ability and your ceiling versus a guy who's been a backup his entire career, never fantasy relevant, and at times this year has also not been fantasy relevant and has had some good games. I am not that person. I will never give that advice. And as I said the other day, could I be wrong? Sure. Are there days where Geno Smith's going to outperform Lamar Jackson? Absolutely. And if you want to stand on that hill and celebrate those days, more power to you. But in the end, I will take a 3-game stretch of Lamar Jackson in the playoffs than a 3-game stretch of Geno Smith. And I don't want to pick and choose when that is. I don't care that it's the 49ers defense. I don't care if it's the Broncos defense. I don't want to have to select, this is the game where he's going to – I'm not doing it. I'm always going to ride with the guy that I feel like is supposed to be there and take my lumps. And that maybe it's a personal preference thing, but I think people get too cute when they start trying to pick and choose when those elite days are going to come from a quarterback that hasn't really proven that he's elite.
All right.
I mean,
that's it.
I didn't mean to remove you. I removed him. I'm coming in here. I'll step up and defend Geno Smith here because it needs to be done. You, out of all people, always come in here talking about you got to forget about what's in the past. You got to forget about the what's happened in the past, or your draft, whether it's where you invested in the draft or anything like that. But now we're trying to change that narrative up to say, okay, we have to think about what Lamar Jackson has done in the past. I get it. But the safer pick here is Geno Smith, and I think at this point,
we're not talking about what's safer.
I think at this point,
wait, is it safer? How many 7-point games does Lamar Jackson have?
You're talking
how many
about
7-point games does Lamar Jackson have? If it's safer, 0. How many does Geno have? He has 1. So how's that safer? The floor versus the ceiling. If it's safe, if a floor is safe, how many safe games are you safe with scoring 7 points from your quarterback? Because Geno's done that this year.
To me, I think it is. I think it is a safer play because, to me, I'll talk about Lamar Jackson later on in my do not like quarterbacks this week, and I think I would start Geno Smith over Lamar Jackson. You look at the numbers; it is a safer play because over the past since week 4, Geno Smith quarterback 6. Since week 4, Lamar Jackson quarterback 14. Like, I'm sorry. I'm not taking the guy with a terrible matchup going against one of the best defenses in the NFL over a guy in Geno Smith who has been much better. I will put it on the board, bet you, that Lamar Jackson
he has not been much better. You can say he's been much better. Go the course of the entire this year alone. How many points per game is Geno averaging?
I will say this. I think when you compare, when you look at Lamar Jackson's numbers, and I think this is what's kind of covering up what Lamar Jackson has actually been this season. You look at Lamar Jackson week 2 and week 3. He had those massive games, the 40+ point games that he had. That's what he's capable of. But I get that's what he's capable of. But that was week 3. That was week 2 and week 3. Like, you can't. But the thing is, you can't keep harping on that. Like you always say, you're not going to get the points from week 2 and week 3. I'm
not getting the points from last week with Geno Smith. You're missing the point. It's not about getting those points. It's about what the person's potential is. Geno Smith does not have the potential of a 40-point game. Never has, never will. As a matter of fact, Geno Smith doesn't have the potential of a 30-point game. Never has, never will. Barely, I think he's done it like once or twice in his career. I don't know. He's maybe done it once. The fact of the matter is his ceiling is not close to Lamar Jackson's ceiling. Right. And his floor is far lower than Lamar Jackson's floor. So where does that?
I don't know. I don't think his floor is as low as Lamar Jackson's is.
His floor this year alone was 7 points.
That was one game. That's
a floor. So when has Lamar Jackson ever scored 7 points?
I don't think you're going to get a 7-point game from Lamar Jackson.
I think your point is invalid.
I think you are safer than with Geno Smith. Lamar Jackson's floor is 10 points. So we're looking at that. It's like that is that where we're talking? Is that where we put Lamar Jackson's floor?
Even if you average that out over the course of a season between two bad quarterbacks, 3 points per game. That's a significant difference. So for you to look at his points per game, 21 to whatever Geno Smith is, because the ceiling is so high and because the floor is so high, you taking that risk is fine. If you choose to take that risk, I'm telling you, that's fine. You're willing to take that risk. But when you go make that choice, week what is this? Week 13? Week 13, good luck. When you go make that choice in the playoffs, I would venture to guess most analytical fantasy minds would not be able to pull the trigger on playing Geno Smith over Lamar Jackson. That's exactly what we're talking about. I just said it. Down the stretch.
We're not talking about playoffs.
I just said this. I said down the stretch, you make that choice week 15. You make that choice week 16. When your fantasy season is on the line, it's easy to say that when you're 9-2 or 8-2 and you're playing week 14, 13, and it doesn't matter to you. You tell these people that are in the elimination game to play Geno Smith over Lamar Jackson, and you see how that goes across. You're not doing it. You go in the playoffs and you do that, and then you can come up on here and puff your chest up about I'm going to start Geno Smith over Lamar Jackson in an elimination game, not in a game that really doesn't matter to you. There's people out there that are fighting for their playoff lives, and you're going to rely on Geno Smith. Are you going to rely on Daniel Jones too because he's ranked quarterback 7 over certain weeks and Lamar's not? Hell no. You're going to start Lamar Jackson because his floor is higher, his ceiling higher, and he's goddamn Lamar Jackson. That's why. And if you lose, you go down with that ship. That's the same argument you can make for a Christian McCaffrey going against a tough Saints team and you're choosing to play Jamal Williams because he's been 13 touchdowns. It's not relevant. It's not relevant.
I think you will be going down with the ship. I think the ship is going down. I think Geno Smith has the better day than Lamar Jackson this week.
You know what? We can make the bet.
Put it on the board. I need to bounce back. Put it on the board.
Lamar Jackson against Denver has a better day than Geno Smith against who do they play? I don't even know who they play. And that's how bad it is. That's how bad you got me right now. I don't even know who the hell they play. And I'm gonna still take the other guy. Matter of fact, I'm absolutely taking that. I'll take that because the Rams ain't a great matchup for Geno Smith.
No Aaron Donald? I don't know.
What does that got to do? Ask Patrick Mahomes. It wasn't easy. It wasn't tough. It was tough sledding for Patrick Mahomes last week, and he put up 19. So we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there. That's fine. We can have this board bet, whatever. I'll win another board bet, and we'll call it a day. But the fact of the matter is if for those that are looking for fantasy advice, if you want to start Geno Smith over Lamar Jackson, especially in the playoffs, good luck. That's all I'm gonna say. Good luck.
All right. Let's stick with the quarterbacks here. Let's recap your top 12 quarterback rankings. Again, Patrick Mahomes, the God, sits at number 1. No Lamar Jackson, which is the biggest standout here. Deshaun Watson sits at number 8, which is his revenge game coming in against the Houston Texans. Aaron, did you want to talk about Watson at all and his fantasy value and what people should be expecting, or you want to move on?
I think we can move on. I did drop that the other day. I said I think he has a 300-yard day. It's more about normally I would not rate him this high in a first game back. This is probably more of a gut call than anything, guys. I just think I'm big on you like the mental side, Vinny. I'm big on like coming back, trying to prove something.
The mental side.
It wasn't an injury, right? It's not like he's coming back from some injury that he's got to get worked back in. This is just about hasn't played football in a long time. And it's mental. So there's a very real possibility that he flops. I'll be honest. If you do not have to start him, you're probably not starting him. This is more of a gut call for me, playing into that mental side of it. And that's really it. But I do think he has a 300-yard day here, and I think he plays well.
If Justin Fields plays, you have this decision, although it's a 2-quarterback league and you'll probably start both. If Justin Fields play – are they on a bye this week? They're on a bye this week.
I don't have Justin anymore.
Oh, you traded him. That's where
I traded Justin and Tua for Dak.
That was the thing. Oh well, so you would have ran into this decision with Justin Fields and Deshaun Watson this week, and they do play the Packers. I'm not wrong. Would you play Justin Fields if he's in over Deshaun Watson?
If Justin Fields is playing, you're playing Justin Fields. The rushing upside, as crazy as it sounds, again, it's like Lamar Jackson. The rushing upside's too high. His floor becomes 10 points, 11 points. That's just from rushing alone, damn near. And then you account for anything he gets through the air. That floor is way too high. You just have to play quarterbacks like that right now.
So you'd play Lamar Jackson over Deshaun Watson here, right? That's where we're at as well.
Like I said, Deshaun Watson's ranked number 8 because of it's more of a gut thing. If somebody really asked me, hey, Lamar Jackson or Deshaun Watson, I'm gonna tell him probably Lamar Jackson.
Okay, all right. That does it for our rankings here, our quarterbacks and our running backs. Tomorrow, we'll hit you with our wide receivers and tight ends. We'll talk pass catcher rankings heading into week 13 on Sunday. Now let's turn our attention to the matchups here. Let's go inside the matchup. That is right. It is time to go inside the matchup here, and it's a little bit different now that we're all fantasy all the time. Inside the matchup is not going to go game by game. We're going to talk about matchups that we like and we don't like, featuring the quarterbacks and the running backs. That's the theme of the show today. So let's start right there with the quarterbacks that we like heading into this week. AJ, who's your love? Who's your loving quarterback?
All right, so the quarterback that I love this week is going to be in a shootout, in my opinion. I think you have some things to say about this. Jared Goff versus Jacksonville. Jared Goff has played very well at home, and I think that continues. He's got 15 touchdowns and 3 interceptions at home, as opposed to 2 touchdowns and 4 interceptions on the road. Amon-Ra St. Brown has been that guy for him, and DJ Chark and Khalif Raymond has also stepped up for him. I look at the Jaguars, who've allowed both quarterbacks. They've both played to score at least 22 fantasy points. And then Jared Goff himself has had 21 fantasy points in week 12 and now scored 18 fantasy points in 5 of the last 6 home games this season. I think he's a good fire-up. I think this is a good offensive back and forth. And with Trevor Lawrence playing the way he's been playing, I expect them to put up some points as well, forcing Jared Goff to have to come back on the field and prove he can do it in another drive and another drive and then another drive. So I like Jared Goff this week. You got him on your lineups. I think he's a fire up.
I can't. Wait, what did you just say about Jared Goff?
Which part?
What? I want you to read the whole damn thing you just said about Jared Goff again. What in the hell are you looking at?
Which part?
You said something about Jared Goff scored 20-something fantasy points last week. I'm looking at 17.
I'll tell you what it is. I'll tell you exactly.
The week before that, 6. The week before that, 14. The week before that, 12. The week before that, 18. And then 3 the week before that.
Home games.
6 the week before that.
Home games. 5 of the last 6 home games Jared Goff has scored. Now, I didn't use – so I'll give you this one little slip is I didn't use Sleeper. I was on CBS. But other than that –
man – come on, AJ. Listen, we've been over this before. You got to get your numbers right. I'm over here confused as hell. I'm like, should I argue with them or should I just move on? And I'm like, I'm not seeing what he's talking about. I get you said home games. That's why I asked you to say the number again, because I didn't hear the number. I just saw his numbers. I'm like, the man ain't had a 20-point day since week 4. He's only had 2 20-point days all week or all season. Sure. I don't know. I don't even know where to argue at now, Vinny. I don't know what, because the numbers are off. He's throwing me off. I will go to mine. If you want to start Jared Goff, go to Jared Goff. I ain't trusting Jared Goff. That man is not very good. He has played better at home than he has away. That is a true fact. AJ is correct there. If you like the home matchup, go with it. Mine's going to be quick because we've touched on them already. It's more of a gut call than anything because there is no evidence. There is no proof. I can't throw numbers at you because it's Deshaun Watson. I just think Deshaun Watson is going to come back with some sort of vengeance against his old team. I love the story, and we always got to talk about a revenge game. And so Deshaun Watson against Houston. Houston is very, very good against the quarterback position, only allowing 13 points a game. So it's not a great matchup. But I like the matchup because of these outside factors. So, again, this is for me. This is not for you to go out and just make sure you start your Deshaun Watson. I'm not giving any advice here. This is me saying I believe that Deshaun Watson's going to have a good day. So if you rock with the Messiah, jump on board. If you ain't fucking with me,
not unless you have Lamar Jackson on your team as well. You're going to start Lamar Jackson over Deshaun Watson.
What? There's a number of quarterbacks I'd start over Deshaun Watson. That wasn't the question.
So you're not rocking with Deshaun Watson. You just saying it's.
I am because I am starting
day.
Deshaun Watson this week. I own Deshaun Watson in a league, and I put my money where my mouth is. I own Deshaun Watson in a league. I actually own him in 2 leagues. One of them, I'm not starting him in because I have Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. That's not happening.
Deshaun Watson or Lamar Jackson?
I already told you that if I had both, I would start Lamar Jackson, but I don't. I have Deshaun Watson. He is starting in my league against you. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is.
It's a big-time matchup.
I traded away Tua Tagovailoa and Justin Fields so I could start Deshaun Watson this week. So I'm not saying something that I'm not doing. I am starting Deshaun Watson, and I'm okay with rocking with that. So if you rock with the Messiah, go ahead and jump on board and start him. If you don't fuck with me, then it's okay. You make your choice. Hey, you go with AJ and you start Jared Goff. Good luck.
Oh man, I'll take a pass on both of your quarterbacks here, and I'll start my own. I will start my quarterback. I will go with my guy, Trevor Lawrence, this week against the Detroit Lions. Similar to what you said, Aaron, where it's like it's not this. It's not just like there's not like all these fancy stats. Well, it is just fancy stats with me, but also it's as simple as this: the Lions suck. The Lions suck, okay? That's plain and simple, flat out suck against just about every position they play against on the defense side of the ball. They rank 32nd against opposing fantasy quarterbacks. Start up your Trevor Lawrence. He's been a top 12 quarterback in 3 straight weeks. Last week, he finished as quarterback 5 against the Ravens, quarterback 8 the previous week against the Chiefs, and quarterback 12 against the Raiders. This guy, Trevor Lawrence, he has been playing. He's been balling out over the past few weeks, currently QB 11, averaging 17 points a game. You look at the matchup for Trevor Lawrence, it's a good one. It's juicy against the terrible Lions defense. You're starting to see more weapons get involved with this offense and a Christian Kirk and a Zay Jones. And what does that come back to? All the hype is around Zay Jones, talking about Christian Kirk and all those guys. Well, it comes back to the quarterback who's throwing them the ball, who's been balling out, who's stepping into his own, who's coming into his own at the quarterback position. Trevor Lawrence has one of the juiciest, if not the juiciest, matchup this week at the quarterback position. Start him up over your Watson, over your Goff, over your Lamar. Start him up over everybody not named Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen.
Whoa, QB3? Stop it! Stop it! You were there. You were there, and then you just jumped off the damn cliff.
I feel no sympathy. I feel no sympathy here. I will go.
To be fair, Trevor Lawrence has been great this year. I think he's been a QB1 every. I think games. Seven out of 11 games.
I think QB3 is strong, but I think Trevor Lawrence is a lock. I think Trevor Lawrence is a lock and loaded top 5 quarterback this week.
Yeah.
Locked and loaded, book it, Trevor Lawrence, top 5 quarterback.
Yeah. No.
Put it on the board in my own self. In my own self.
When you say book it, like that's like a lot. Nah, I don't like that. He doesn't run enough. He just doesn't. It's hard to put a guy in your top 5 if you don't run.
BOOK. Book it.
Okay.
Trevor Lawrence, top 5 quarterback this week.
Right.
That's it right there.
Okay.
All right. Quarterbacks we're trying to avoid, AJ.
All right. This time we're gonna go against the GOAT. We're going against Tom Brady. I don't like Tom Brady's matchup this week, going into Week 13 against the New Orleans Saints. The Saints have been his kryptonite for whatever reason since he's become a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Him and the Saints, they just don't get along, and the Saints have normally gotten the better of him. You look back at Week 2 against the New Orleans Saints, he scored just 9.4 fantasy points. Over the last 5 outings, he's averaged 237.4 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and 3 fumbles against the Saints. They've found a way to really get his number. New Orleans has been pretty good against really good quarterbacks, including Kyler, Derek Carr, Lamar Jackson, and I won't say really good, but a good game manager in his old rival Jimmy G. So looking at the New Orleans Saints this week against Tom Brady, this is one place where lightning has struck multiple times. New Orleans has Tom Brady's number. I don't like his matchup. If you have any other way to pivot, I think that would be a good idea to do so.
Yeah, I like that one. For me, it's Kirk Cousins. You like that? Yeah, Kirk Cousins going against this Jets defense. look, the Jets have been really good all season long. Top 7 in fantasy points allowed to quarterback position against, only allowing 14.9 fantasy points per game to the quarterback position. You got Sauce Gardner, you got Reed back there. I just think this is one of those games where they need to rely on Dalvin Cook, but it's going to be a physical, tough defensive battle. I know what Trevor Siemian came in and was able to do early in that game against the Jets last week, but they battled down, they locked up. Robert Saleh has that team playing and believing, and right now there's no better corner play in the league than Sauce Gardner, and we talked about like Patrick Surtain, but Sauce Gardner is right there. So this defense of the Jets has been consistently good, and Kirk Cousins has struggled against some of the better defenses. We talk about Philly early in the season. At New Orleans, he only had 13 points, and then we saw that big dud of 2 points against Dallas. I think this is a good spot for the Jets defense here, and I think Kirk Cousins is a quarterback that I'm fading. Normally, he sits around that 10 to 12 mark. I think he's more of a mid-tier quarterback too this week against the Jets.
I'm hitting you with it. This is where I wanted to go before, and this is where I'm leading it into. I am I am not liking the Lamar Jackson matchup. We've really talked about it a lot, but I'm gonna hit it home right here. Lamar Jackson is the quarterback matchup that I really wanted to discuss because he's going up against, obviously, the second best defense against the quarterback position in the Denver Broncos, only allowing an average of 11.5 fantasy points per game. You talked about that floor of Lamar Jackson being 10 points. You might be really damn close to it with the matchup here against the Denver Broncos. And something about last week that really stood out to me in that game against the Jaguars for Lamar Jackson was his slow production up until the end of the game. And his stats last week, 20-plus fantasy points, you think, okay, Lamar had a good day. But when you look deeper inside of it, it wasn't that great of a day. Leading up to there, he only had about 10 fantasy points until the final 3 drives of the game. They only put up 9 points in the first half against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Something is not right with Lamar Jackson, in my opinion. Something is not right. He's been QB 14 since week 4. And we saw yesterday that he was limited in practice, had to leave early because something's bothering Lamar Jackson. And I think that is something that needs to be talked about a little bit more. I think the injuries for him it's something that at the end of the season we're going to see, Lamar Jackson was battling such and such, and it was hindering his performance. I think that's something to talk about. The fact that he's QB 14 since week 4 is a very big deal to me, because that's not what Lamar Jackson's normally is. That's not what you drafted Lamar Jackson to be. Now matched up against the Denver Broncos, who are shutting down opposing fantasy quarterbacks. I think it's a tough day for him. And don't let this slide under the radar. I know how big of a fan of Rashad Bateman you guys know I am, but I think it matters. I think that the lack of the ability to stretch the field for the Baltimore Ravens has been a problem. You saw them stretch the field with Djax on Sunday against the Jaguars. That helped him. But I think that there's a big-time problem with the wide receiver position with the Ravens. Obviously, when you're throwing to James Prochet, Demarcus Robinson, and Devin Duvernay, you're going to see a problem. But I think it's affecting Lamar Jackson more than it's being discussed. You see those 20-point fantasy that they had last week. Look deeper. Lamar Jackson against the Denver Broncos getting near that 10-point fantasy range.
What do you mean look deeper? Now you got me all irritated today.
Look deeper.
I didn't want to look deeper. What is deeper? What is the point of saying, he didn't have a good fantasy day? He only had 10 points until the last 3 drives, and he gets 23. That's the point. Right. That's Lamar Jackson.
But the thing is you're not going to get that you're not going to get that type of performance every week. And when you're matched up in this specific week against the Denver Broncos, the Denver Broncos defense is not going to allow you to pop off at the end of the game like that.
I want to bring that up. What quarterback has Denver played that runs the ball like Lamar Jackson? Go look at their damn schedule. You want to talk look deeper? You want to look deeper? Let's look at Houston, San Francisco, Las Vegas, Indianapolis, the Jets, Jacksonville. Right. What quarterback is Lamar Jackson in that group of teams?
You're right. The Denver Broncos have not faced an offense like what Lamar Jackson can do, but
what he's going to do. Like, there's no debate. He's had 10+ carries in 7 or 8 games this year. He is going to run the football. So the difference in Lamar Jackson's fantasy production over the last whatever weeks is the touchdowns. That is it. That is specifically it. If you look at the numbers, everything is the same. He doesn't throw for 300 yards. Never been that really kind of quarterback. When he does throw for 300, guess what happens? He scores 40. His volume in attempts and rushing and touchdowns are what determines Lamar Jackson's fantasy value. It is not about his throwing. Yeah, you can talk about Rashad Bateman not stretching the field from an NFL football perspective, what that does to their team and impact. Absolutely. But what Lamar Jackson does is run the football and throw touchdowns to Mark Andrews in the end zone. That is his fantasy production. And the reason his fantasy production has been down is because his touchdowns have been down. So that to me, that's the point you're judging Lamar Jackson on, is whether he's going to throw only one touchdown or whether he's going to throw three by the red zone, or does he run one in? He only has 3 rushing touchdowns on the year. That is unlike Lamar Jackson. He hasn't had a passing touchdown, or I'm sorry, he's only had 4 passing touchdowns since week 6. That is unlike Lamar Jackson. So if you are banking on that to continue, then sure, you can have that mindset. But this is not about him looking different. He's running the same amount. He's still effective in the run game. He just hasn't gotten the end zone. So I will take the side of the positive touchdown regression, getting back in the end zone any day. And I know Denver's defense is great, and I'm not trying to make this about knocking them, but they have not played a running quarterback like Lamar Jackson.
But I get it. And so remember when we were talking about how you're game planning, like where the game plan is coming from, and when you're talking about the Tennessee Titans and how when you face the Tennessee Titans offense, you're game planning against and for Derrick Henry. When you're playing the Baltimore Ravens,
game plan for Lamar Jackson like that.
Why you can't game plan for
you don't think every single team in the NFL comes in and game plans to stop Lamar Jackson? It's like saying I'm game planning for Patrick Mahomes. You can't game plan.
It's the same thing for Derrick Henry. It's the same thing.
No,
sometimes that is
not the same thing, Vinny.
The talent, sometimes the talent is too much to handle.
It's not about talent. It's about the position. You can't game plan for a running quarterback like that. Why do you think Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson are so successful? You don't think that the defenses come out and say, we need to eliminate them from running? You cannot game plan for off-schedule plays. You can't do it. There's no game plan that says when Lamar Jackson breaks the pocket, do this. No, just tackle him. That's your job. Coaches don't sit around and say, okay, guys, when Lamar Jackson gets outside the pocket, the DB is going to come. You can't. There is no game plan for that. It's what makes these quarterbacks or these guys different. With the running back, it's easy. It's easier. I don't say it's easy. It's easier to develop what gap you're going to hit, what scheme you're going to hit, when you're going to set the edge versus when you're going to crash. Those are game plans. You can't game plan for Lamar Jackson dropping back, looking to throw, and then all of a sudden saying, you know what, here's a hole there in man coverage. I get outside the tackle box, I'm going to do this. Unless you quarterback spy the entire game, which if you do that, he will kill you through the air because that eliminates a defender. This is the whole point. It makes it 11 on 11 football. And in the 11 on 11 football, the offense always has the advantage. So yes, they're going to focus on Lamar Jackson, but no team stops Lamar Jackson from like doing what he wants to do. The only time he's been stopped this year, really running the football, averaging less than 4 yards a carry, was when he ran it 11 times against Carolina, and that was an ugly game. And he still, again, 16 fantasy points. And the very first game of the year, which he ended up scoring 20 because he only ran the ball 6 times. Other than that, he's been effective on the ground every time he runs it because you can't game plan for it. So I get your point. And yes, I do think you can say temper your expectations. But you're talking about fading this because of a matchup. I'm not fading. You can't fade a quarterback with that high of a ceiling because of a matchup. And this is what we argued about when we did trade talks.
I get it. I think that to me, and everything points to Lamar Jackson having a closer day to 10 points than 20 points. And
so let's set that line. Let's set the line, and let's just say we already got Geno versus Lamar. Let's set a line. Like, what is your ceiling for Lamar Jackson this week?
No more than 15 points here in this game.
I would take the over. I think that like to set a ceiling at 15 for Lamar Jackson is asinine.
Yeah. I think under 15 points to Lamar Jackson here is where I'm going, because you talk about the running, and this is one more thing. And I know you talk about how it's a little bit different to game plan for Lamar Jackson than it is for Derrick Henry, but I wanted to bring that game specifically up when the Denver Broncos played the Tennessee Titans. Derrick Henry, only 6 fantasy points there. He had 19 carries for just 53 yards.
It's not the same. It's not the same. Lamar Jackson doesn't run between the tackles like that. That's not where he's getting his value.
Right. You're right. I just don't see nothing lines up to me for Lamar Jackson here in this matchup against the Denver Broncos. Hence why he's the matchup I do not like, and I'm honestly, I feel like I'm starting to make you want to put Lamar Jackson in your top 10 or your top 12 quarterbacks.
You make me want to put him top 5. Listen, he's playing at home. Like this is. Like you didn't even like they're not even on the road. Like if they were on the road in Denver, I might give you some. They are like, I don't get it.
We'll see. AJ.
Hey guys. How y'all doing?
What side are you on, AJ? What side are you on?
I think 15 is low, but I think around 17 is accurate. I think Denver's gonna. I understand the game, so I understand you can't game plan for an off-schedule QB. While I get that, it's not like there's so many weapons that they do have to worry about in Denver. So it is a little easier to not have to worry so much about what's behind you. You know, it's Mark Andrews. You know, Devin Duvernay may catch a pass. I mean, DeMarcus Robinson's up and down, inconsistent at best. And then you got the rushing game. You know they want to run as a team. I think that makes it a little easier for Denver and what they want to do. I think you're right when you say you don't game plan for a guy like Lamar Jackson, but I do think it's a little easier because they don't have all the weapons that perhaps a Jalen Hurts has had over the past season.
What about Justin Fields? It's the same thing. It's the same. Like we can talk about these guys.
The Justin Fields argument would come with the fact of every young rookie quarterback to second-year quarterback. You don't have anything on him. Last year, all you had is, we all can sack Justin Fields. This year, he breaks out. This year, he's doing things you haven't seen.
What do you mean you don't have anything on him? You don't know that Justin Fields can run? This is not throwing the football. We were talking about running the football.
But you know you can run, but you haven't seen him. You didn't see him do it like that last year. Even when he tried, they were dropping him to the ground. You didn't see him drop off for 150-plus yards game after game after game.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking when you go in to play the Bears, what are you doing? You're scheming so Justin Fields can't run. This year, last year, because you knew they had no outside weapons. You knew they had nothing else. So what is your game plan? Well, let's stop Justin Fields from getting outside the pocket. You can't do it. It's impossible to game plan for. I get what Vinny's saying about stretching the field. You just can't go into the mindset. You can't go into the mind of a defensive coordinator that comes in and says, well, we want to stop Lamar Jackson. Well, yeah, everybody does. How do you stop Lamar Jackson? You want to make Lamar Jackson a pocket passer. That is a game plan, right? You want to make Lamar Jackson a pocket passer. Well, the way Baltimore runs that offense is they say, we don't care that you want to make Lamar Jackson a pocket passer. We are going to run him on quarterback power. Because when you do that, now you can't play the same defensive front when you're trying to keep him inside the pocket. If you put too many guys in the box, what happens when he breaks out and it's man coverage? Then all the defenders' backs are to him, and there's an 80-yard touchdown run. So it's not as simple as just saying we want to contain Lamar Jackson, because what Baltimore's offense does that's unlike anybody else in the NFL is their ability to use the quarterback in the running game that makes defenses or dictates to what the defense has to do. If they run that press man and all those guys in the box, Lamar Jackson might get bottled up for 3 quarters. But if he breaks one tackle, if he gets outside one time, there's the 80-yard touchdown. And that's what you're not willing to risk that a lot of times as a defensive coordinator. If you do it, good luck. You might have a chance to be like Carolina did and bottle them up one game. I will take the history of 5 years of Lamar Jackson that says that's not going to happen over the course of a 17-game season. So, again, it's differing of opinions. I just don't like comparing it to a running back because it's completely different. Lamar Jackson is not a running back. But if you say 15 points is the line, we'll leave it at that, and we'll find out on Sunday.
Yeah, if 15 points is the line, I'll lock that in. That's our quarterback.
15.01.
Hey, honestly,
I'm coming on here hard.
Well, I was just looking at. I'm sticking in with the 15 under 15 points. I'm not going to back away from that. But I do like the comparison to linking it up to the game that he had against Carolina. Like that's the game that I think that is the closest game that he'll have against the Denver Broncos here. He had 16.5 fantasy points in that one. But his rushing yards, only 31 rushing yards, but it was the touchdown that really helped him. He had 209 passing yards, and then he had 31 rushing yards and a touchdown that got him 16.5 points. I think that's the more likely day for him.
He's not going to score a touchdown. Baltimore's not going to score, is what you're saying.
I think they will score, but I don't know if it comes from Lamar Jackson.
Lamar Jackson touches the ball every play. That's the point.
The other problem here is that they're facing the Denver Broncos offense, which just can't stay on the field and is just a shithole of a mess. So that's the other thing. But Denver's defenses look good. I'm locking it under 15 on Lamar. Let's move on here because we really got to finish this up. Let's move on. Running backs here that we like and don't like. AJ, who's a running back that you like this week?
I'm going with Aaron Jones from the Green Bay Packers. I think he's got another good lineup this week. We know Aaron Rodgers has been banged up, although he plans to play. We're now talking about a broken thumb, talking about some messed up ribs. They may rely a little bit more on the running game, and we are talking about them facing the Chicago Bears. In week 2, when he faced the Chicago Bears, had 132 rushing yards, put in 38 as a receiver, and a season-high 32 fantasy points. The Bears are in the bottom 10 allowing points against fantasy running backs to the position. So I think you can expect that to continue here. I think that's a trend you can bank on. Aaron Jones has been their offense along with Christian Watson over the last couple weeks, and I look for that to continue. I think Aaron Jones has a great matchup, another fire up for you.
Yeah, for me, it's Kyren Williams. You saw my rankings. I had him at RB24, I believe. Cam Akers is sick, so dealing with an illness. I'm not sure if he'll be ready by Sunday. Even if he is, you saw Kyren play 70% of the snaps this past week. But more so than anything, we saw with Josh Jacobs, and I know Josh Jacobs is a dog, and maybe that's not Kyren Williams, but we saw what he was able to do to that Seattle run defense. I think Kyren Williams has some success here. They're getting him involved not only in the run game, but also in the pass game. He had 3 targets last game. He's getting more and more work as he's working his way back from that injury. They don't have a lot of depth in the backfield. They obviously still don't love Cam Akers because he's still not playing over Kyren Williams. I think it's a youth movement now for the Rams. They're going to look what they have going forward. So I think this is more about volume than it is about efficiency. I don't think he's going to be very efficient, but I think if he's going to touch the ball a number of times like he did last week, he got 9 points last week. I think he can get into the double digits this week, and I think that's a nice low end, back end RB2 to top flex play there. So I really like that matchup with Seattle. I think he takes advantage of the matchup plus the opportunities he gets and works his way into that back end RB2 conversation.
Aaron, I don't know if this is because I got into the doc before you did to put mine in here or not, but let me hold on. What's the school called? Bainbridge represent. Dameon Pierce is the dude right now for the running back position. That's my start. I love this matchup that he has. He's going up against the Cleveland Browns this week. The Browns are 31st against the opposing running backs here in fantasy. The only team worse than that is the Houston Texans on the other side. But good thing Dameon Pierce is not facing his own team. That doesn't make any sense. Dameon Pierce is my running back that I'm going with this week. I love the matchup against Cleveland Browns, ranking 31st against opposing running backs. It has not been easy for Dameon Pierce over the past few weeks. He's RB 37 over the last 3 weeks, but really, when you look at it, the last 2 games he's faced the Commanders and he's faced the Dolphins, 2 of the best defenses in terms of fantasy, stopping the fantasy running backs. It changes this week. He's got a great matchup against Cleveland Browns. They're allowing a rushing touchdown per game. And now I was harping on James Conner this past week because he was facing the Chargers defense, which is also allowing a rushing touchdown per game. And you were like, okay, does that rushing touchdown come from Kyler Murray or does it come from James Conner? You didn't know. This week with Dameon Pierce, you have Kyle Allen as your quarterback. You know that's not coming from Kyle Allen. It's going to come from Dameon Pierce. In games this year where the Texans have scored more than 17 points, you've seen a heavy workload for Dameon Pierce. Now, I'm no NFL coach. I don't get paid to do this. There are guys that are getting paid to study this. You don't think that they're seeing that when their offense is the most successful, it's because they're giving the workload to Dameon Pierce? I think that's what they figure out here. They go into this game facing the Cleveland Browns, who have a terrible running defense, and you see a similar day to what he had against the Chargers earlier on in the season. Dameon Pierce, start him up.
Everything I was going to say earlier when you asked me about Dameon Pierce. Exact words.
I don't want to disagree because I have him and I love Dameon Pierce, but I'm disagreeing with you. Everything you said is factual. Everything you said is factual.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
I don't trust it. I don't trust it. I don't trust what I've seen from Houston over the past couple of weeks. 15 carries in the last 2 weeks. Dameon Pierce hasn't scored a touchdown since week 5. They don't score. They don't use them the way they should use them. You talk about the touchdown. He's so touchdown dependent because he doesn't do anything out of the passing game. Even the game, he went 27 for 139. His ceiling was 13 fantasy points. He is the definition of touchdown dependent. He is Brian Robinson with maybe more opportunity, but even then lately hasn't been that much opportunity. So I do think his ceiling is capped as an RB2. He's been, I think, in the top 12 RBs 3 times, and that was that 3-game stretch early in the season where it was Jacksonville, Chicago, and the Chargers. But I'll be honest, I just don't trust this Houston offense. What if the game gets away from them again like it did last week? He's irrelevant. Yeah. He becomes irrelevant, and I don't like that. I don't like players like that, especially on bad teams, because how many games are going to get away from Texans? Damn near all of them. So when that happens, like he becomes eliminated, and I love Dameon Pierce. I think he's a good runner, physical, but they need to start using him in other ways in the passing game, find a way to get him in there for me to feel comfortable. Rex Burk's head's out, but even then they went to Dare Ogunbowale. So I hope you're right. I know Cleveland's defense sucks, and I know you can run on them. I just worry that they get behind, and when they get behind, they start throwing the ball. That Houston starts trying to throw the ball. And that's going to frustrate me as a fantasy owner, but also just be disappointing for Dameon Pierce because it could be another dud game. But I do like the matchup. I think the matchup's a really good matchup. So in the context of our conversation, yes, I do like your matchup.
Yeah, I think you could see another a day from Dameon Pierce. I think double digits is in the range of outcomes here. I think a 13-point day somewhere around there for Dameon Pierce is where I would be setting the line for him. I think a high end RB2 is where you're going to see Dameon Pierce finish the week and push into that RB1 category because of how juicy the matchup is against Cleveland Browns. Let's talk about bad matchups we don't like. AJ, who you got?
Yeah, this week, tonight, actually, no Devin Singletary for me. He had a great matchup last week against the Lions and ended up only scoring 9 fantasy points. We expected a lot more out of that. And I think he's going to have a very tough time against the Patriots today, who are one of the better run defenses in the NFL, allowing the fewest points per game to running backs this season in the last month, allowing single digits. The Patriots have actually had Devin Singletary's number all the times he's played him. Last year, 2 times, couldn't rush for more than 40 yards. He's only topped 50 yards once in his 5 career games against the Patriots. I think that continues today. You're not going to see him get any passing work. He's only had no more than 2 targets in the last 3 games. That work is now going to guys like James Cook and Nyheim Hines. I think it's going to be a tough day for Devin Singletary. If you have other running backs, which I'm sure you do, you should probably go that route.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. For me, it's Alvin Kamara. You mentioned him earlier, and to be honest, I ranked him higher than I wanted to. I don't love the matchup against Tampa Bay. I don't love what I've seen from Alvin Kamara over the past couple of weeks, really over the course of the season outside of that like 3 or 4 week stretch. There's something in the back of my mind that still is reluctant to just fade him completely. Like I mentioned the other day, I was like, or to you on the chat, like sell him to me low. I'll buy low on him just because I know what his ceiling is when he gets right and he's still involved in the passing game. But you can't really trust him as your RB1 right now. He did not play against Tampa earlier this year, so you don't really know what that looks like. I do expect him to get probably 5-6 targets in this game. So he'll have a day where you can look at the fantasy production and say, okay, it's probably some RB2, maybe back in RB2, but I don't think the ceiling is there right now for him. He is not scoring touchdowns this year. He has 1 rushing touchdown on the year and only 2 receiving touchdowns on the year. That I don't know how to put this really into context, but last year he had 9 touchdowns. The year before that he had 21. His lowest output has been 6, and that was in 2019. I just don't. He's a touchdown guy. He usually gets in the end zone, finds a way to get in the end zone. He hasn't this year. It's been a disappointing year for Alvin Kamara, so I'm fading him this week. I think he's more. You have him, you start him, but you start him and expect more of a middle to back end RB2.
That doesn't make me feel good. That doesn't make me feel good because I did trade for him. But that I'm getting the same feeling. I'm getting the same feeling. I'm starting to feel and lean towards that way. And it's one of those situations where it's a running back. You're like, okay, we've seen what the potential is, and almost similar to the Lamar Jackson thing, and maybe not similar to the Lamar Jackson thing because Lamar's actually putting up the points, but similar to just, the ceiling is there or could be there with Alvin Kamara, but it just hasn't been, and you have no way of telling where this offense and where this direction of this team is going under Dennis Allen. If it was Sean Payton, you'd have a little bit more hope, but this time around, you don't. I understand that Alvin Kamara feeling. My running back, though, is someone that you guys might look at and think, oh, he had this blow-up week last week. You're going to continue rolling with him. But my running back that I don't like the matchup for this week is Miles Sanders of the Philadelphia Eagles going up against the Tennessee Titans defense. Last week, Miles Sanders, obviously, he popped off. He went off. He had the big game, 2 touchdowns, and he blew up. He was incredible. 2 touchdowns, 143 yards. It was a great game for Miles Sanders. You're like, okay, this is that dude. Going up against Tennessee Titans defense is a little bit different. And I know everyone's high on Miles Sanders because of that game. I'm trying to bring you guys back down to earth, especially with this matchup against the Titans, who ranked 3rd against opposing running backs. Prior to last week's blow-up game, Miles Sanders had 12 carries and 13 carries in the previous 2 weeks for a max of just 54 yards and 0 touchdowns. Let's not forget where Miles Sanders was last year with the fact that we were just begging for him to get in the end zone, and he didn't get it. His fantasy production last year was not great because of that. And I'm not saying Miles Sanders is having that type of year all season, but in this matchup specifically, I think you're looking at him to be a touchdown-dependent guy. And I don't know if you get it going up against Tennessee Titans defense that is only allowing has only allowed 1 rushing touchdown in the past 3 weeks. I don't think you get it here from Miles Sanders. And I think if you do get a rushing touchdown, it might not be from him. It might be from a Jalen Hurts or shocker, it comes from a Kenneth Gainwell or a Boston Scott. I just don't know if you're going to see that type of production from Miles Sanders. And yeah, sure, it's hard to produce 143 and 2 tutties. It's hard to continue that type of pace. But I would like to go back to what Miles Sanders has actually been leading up to that. And I want to temper expectations for Miles Sanders going up against a really tough matchup in the Tennessee Titans defense.
I like how he always ends it thinking that somebody's going to argue. And
well,
mainly me.
I don't know. It's not me ending it on an argument. It's just hard for me to go from me being an analyst to me transitioning into ending our show or going into primetime plays.
Just go into it.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do as a host. After you give your take, just go. All right, now let's get into our primetime plays.
Yeah, well, there you go. You did it right there. Let's get into our primetime plays for Thursday Night Football.
Yeah.
That's right. It is time for our prime time plays. Tonight's matchup features the New England Patriots taking on the Buffalo Bills on Thursday Night Football. We're going to get into our DFS showdown in just a few moments. We're going to invite 100 people to join us in our DFS plays. But Aaron, let's talk about who's out there. Let's talk about the expensive ones and the non-expensive ones. Who's got the best value this tonight in our Thursday night matchup?
Well, seeing that, I was looking for you sending.
I didn't send it yet. I'm sending it right now.
Yeah, I was like,
so not the one that you had already. That's
no, for the love of God, no.
Excuse me. Why do you have me on solo for? I'm not even ready.
Because I was going to have you go into the. Oh my goodness! All right, well, let's just. This is why I don't do these things. Go ahead.
I just thought you would have already sent it. So I was looking. I've been looking for it. And I didn't want to interrupt the show and say, "Hey, you didn't send it." Yeah. So primetime play, is that what we're talking about? You know what? I got a primetime play for you, and I'm gonna use a guy that I just traded, and I'm not happy about trading because I did say he was going to be a factor down the stretch, and I think it's coming. I do. And you tried to say I tried to make him a thing, and I really wasn't. I just was really excited for what he was able to do. It's Isaiah McKenzie. I thought Gabe Davis this year was going to be something. And for whatever reason, in this offense, they just don't go to Gabe Davis, but unless they want a big play. So I'm off the Gabe Davis train. But last week, Isaiah McKenzie had 6 catches, 96 yards on Thanksgiving Day and scored a touchdown. Played the most percentage of snaps he's played all year. I think that continues here this week against New England. I don't know that he's going to have another big day like that. I don't think it's going to be 23 fantasy points. But I do think you look at the fantasy points per game allowed at the wide receiver position. New England's like in the middle of the pack there. They're giving up about 23 points a game. Their defense is good, but they've played some. Let's be honest, they've played some bad teams. They've played the Jets twice, and that is going to skew some of those numbers. When you look at some of the good teams they've played, the Patriots have had trouble just defensively, period. I've thought they've been kind of overrated, but more so than anything, I think on the outside when you got Jonathan Jones, probably trying to lock up Stephon Diggs. Not going to lock him up, but I do think he's going to be on Stephon Diggs. That might have forced Josh Allen to look other places. And like I said, Gabe Davis and Dawson Knox just haven't really been it. I think Isaiah McKenzie could be some good value here. Oh no, that's tough. Gaylord Perry died. Sorry, I just got the update that Gaylord Perry died. As, famous baseball player. Anyways, Isaiah McKenzie. Give me Isaiah McKenzie as my primetime play. $6,800. You're not. I mean, you could try throwing him in as a captain. I would not. I think you go with the safe captain play here today because there's not a lot of great fantasy options. I'm more of a safe guy here for the captain today. Normally, I like to take risks, but today is a little bit tricky because I don't think there's great fantasy options, especially for the Patriots. So Isaiah McKenzie, just put him in your lineup as a flex somewhere, and and hopefully he can get you, 4 or 5 catches, maybe find his way to the end zone. But if he can get you 4 or 5 catches, 50, 60 yards, I think that's going to be at least some value that you can look at.
AJ, what are you seeing tonight?
There's an easy play. That's the Ramondre Stevenson of the world. I think he's going to get a lot of run. I don't know that. I know Damian Harris has already been said to be out. Apparently, Pierre Strong may also be one of the guys who are questionable. Ty Montgomery as well, if I'm not mistaken. So, anyways, what?
There was no need to bring up any of those players. The point
is, there's not someone stepping up after Damian Harris goes.
I don't think anyone was. Anyone was afraid of those guys stepping up for.
Yeah, to be honest, it's probably going to be JJ Taylor. So they're probably going to bring him up from the practice squad or something. I doubt that any of those guys are anything. So.
Which is why Ramondre Stevenson for me is a great captain pick to allow you to get some space to keep some other solid players in there. Obviously, we expect Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs to have a great day, but putting them as a captain makes it hard for you to keep other solid players on your lineup. So I put Ramondre Stevenson in as a captain on my lineup more than likely. I had a thought process about Dawson Knox possibly having himself a decent enough day. With the Patriots looking to shut down talented players, maybe they get close to the red zone, and maybe that's where a Gabe Davis gets looked at. So they lock up a Gabe Davis, and maybe Dawson Knox gets one in the end zone. But again, that's not something you can definitely think on. So maybe just keep an eye out, see what you feel on that one. But Ramondre Stevenson's a guy that I think is going to be a good value play and a good spot for a captain at a good price.
Okay. Let's talk about these lineups then. What are we looking at here? What's our lineups looking like tonight?
For me, I'll tell you my captain's Josh Allen. No hands, no ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah.
I just think you have to in this kind of situation. We saw what he was able to do against New England in the playoff game last year. I'm not taking the chance on not having Josh Allen in my captain spot.
Yeah, I also have Josh Allen in my captain spot as well. My team so far is Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Ramondre Stevenson, and Tyler Bass, trying to figure out how to work my money outside of that.
I have Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Ramondre Stevenson, Nelson Aguilar, James Cook, and my debate right now is between the backup running backs for the New England Patriots.
Gross. Well, good thing AJ just gave us the update on those guys.
Yeah. See, I'm here for you, despite what you think.
It's either Pierre Strong or Kevin Harris, and I don't know which one I want.
So my lineup looks like Ramondre Stevenson as my captain, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs coming next. I also put Dawson Knox on there. I'll hope for that anytime, TD. Nick Folk, the kicker from New England, because that may be the only way they're really well. And then I only had about $400 left, so maybe on the one route and the one target he gets, Tyquan Thornton will put up a TD, $400.
He didn't get targeted at all last week.
I think my lineup My lineup's going to be set here. I have Josh Allen in my captain spot, Stephon Diggs, Ramondre Stevenson, Tyler Bass, Nelson Aguilar, and I will go with just a dart throw shot and go with Tommy Sweeney that's my dart throw because I spent a lot of money everywhere else, and I'm trying to load up heavy. In this game.
Load up heavy. Okay. You went Nelson Aguilar, huh? All right, I'm gonna go a little bit different. I'm going Josh Allen in my captain spot, James Cook in my running back spot or flex spot, Stephon Diggs, Devontae Parker, Ramondre Stevenson, and Pierre Strong. Maybe Ramondre gets hurt or something and nobody's playing Pierre Strong, so I'll go Pierre Strong.
How much is James Cook? Where's he at?
He's in there. James Cook
was he's only 3,600. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not a bad pick.
Take that over Nelson.
Yeah, I like that over Nelson Aguilar too. I didn't even see him I think I was skipping over him because I saw Nick Folk's name. Then I said,
when I had the extra money, I had James Cook and Nelson Aguilar. When I had the extra money for taking Pierre Strong, I upgraded Nelson Aguilar to Devontae Parker. I think Devontae Parker.
I wonder if that allows me to get
safe
the guy that I want
until he gets hurt, but whatever.
Right?
Does James Cook allow me to get Kendrick Bourne? Because I like Kendrick Bourne in this game more than I like. It does not allow me to get Kendrick Bourne. It just makes me miss.
John Smith.
Yeah, no.
I had Hunter Henry in there. But for me,
if you get he just added more money.
Vinny, I think we should run down our teams one more time so I can clip it.
Yeah, go ahead. So
can we do it when we're all three just on the screen?
Sure.
We don't have to be solo, just like this.
Sure.
All right, our primetime, my primetime DFS lineup. Go get you, win you some money tonight. I got Josh Allen 18,300, James Cook, Stephon Diggs, Devontae Parker, Ramondre Stevenson at 10-4, and a little dart throw here. Pierre Strong. I think if Pierre Strong, maybe Ramondre Stevenson needs somebody to spell him. Maybe it's by the goal line. Pierre Strong gets in the end zone. Pierre Strong. That is my DFS lineup for Thursday Night Football.
All right. And for me, I took my captain as Ramondre Stevenson at 15.6 or 15,600. Josh Allen coming in at my flex with his main man, Stephon Diggs, Dawson Knox, Nick Folk, the kicker, and my dart throw, hoping he catches a dart, Tyquan Thornton at the lowly amount of $400 leftover dollars.
I got Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Ramondre Stevenson, Tyler Bass, Nelson Aguilar, and Tommy Sweeney, hoping Tommy Sweeney gets into the end zone. Josh Allen being my quarterback, I am willing to pay up on Josh Allen because he's the best player in this game. Loading up on the best guys, loading up heavy, and taking my dart throw with Tommy Sweeney, Tutty. Give it to him, Josh Allen. Give it to him. Give it to the Sweenster. Give it to the Sweenster. That's our DFS prime time plays for Thursday Night Football between the Bills and the New England Patriots. That does it, though, for another episode of the Sac City Podcast. We'll be back again live tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Time right here on our YouTube page, hitting you guys with our running back matchups that we don't like, our wide receiver matchups that we like and don't like, our tight end matchups that we also don't like and like. We'll also go into those rankings as well and recap the action from Thursday Night Football. Until then, though, AJ, tell them where they can follow us at because it is very important nowadays.
Yes, ladies, gentlemen, thank you. Rocking with the Sac City Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Head right over there at Sac City Pod. Hit those likes, hit those follows, hit those shares, and then hit those shares again, just in case the button didn't click right and you didn't see it pop up. You weren't able to link somebody or tell somebody or tag somebody. We need you to do all those things right here at Sac City Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. If you're on a TikTok, make sure you put our TikToks on your Facebook pages, on your Instagram pages. Tell the world about at Sac City Pod. We appreciate all the love right here in the city. Yeah.
There you have it. We'll be back again live tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern Time right here on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that subscribe, like, comment, do all that good stuff. Until then, for my best friend Aaron Mukes and for your boy AJ Johnson, I am Meat. We'll see you tomorrow.
Peace out.
Holla.